It is the 10th of July. It is hotter than Satan's taint. And you're listening to the Respec Ramblings podcast for Respec.net with me, Alex Donaldson. And I'm joined this week by Tom Orry and by Mr. Kirk McKeand, a good old friend and colleague of ours. How you doing, guys?
All right, I was a bit taken back by your rude opening. Is that what we are? Is that what we are?
Well, it's unseasonably, unfairly hot.
It is tainty as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I get it.
I put this top on, and this color is not good because it's a color where we can't podcast for too long in this room with fans off because I will be looking very gross by the end of it. But yeah, how are you guys actually? Do you have fans? Do you have air conditioning? Obviously, we're Brits.
Got loads of fans. I'm the most popular games journalist.
We're not talking about your only fans.
Games media personality in the UK.
No fans up here. I got a fan downstairs. Windows open. I'm not wearing any pants, but it doesn't matter.
Is that the American version of pants or British pants?
I'll leave that for you to decide, Tom.
Podcasting Commando is that's if we're establishing what this website is perhaps about, I think there's worse things we could be associated with. And it shows, we're open people. We're accepting of all kinds. So yeah, I mean, Kirk, how are you? What are you up to these days? Tell folks a little bit about it. Obviously, I think a lot of people who are listening to this are coming at it from mine and Tom's past history, so they'll know you from the work you did with us and things like that. But what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so we were running a company that did gaming coverage for mainstream sites, but Google changes basically destroyed us there, which is excellent. But now we're doing newsletters, gaming.fireside with a Z chat. And we're talking to game devs, actors, and all sorts of people and trying to get down to like their personalities. It's not just about the stuff they make. It's more like getting to know them and what makes them tick and trying to make them cry.
Trying to make them go, well, it's better than the usual way that media makes game devs cry, which is usually by a bad review or by ringing them up and going, have you heard that there's going to be cuts? And they go, no.
I mean,
which has happened a bit this last week. Yeah.
Sounds like bullying. Are you just bullying people?
Yeah, but it's people I know mostly, so it's fine.
Fair enough. I mean, that's what we're all about. That's what we were all about on VG back in the day. Speaking of devs crying, though, I guess let's roll into the news topic of the week, which is difficult and shitty and awful, which is, I think you'd have to have been living under a rock to not know about it. The absolutely catastrophic cuts that are going to be happening at Xbox. If you have missed it or you haven't digested all of the details, the cliff notes are Xbox has announced they're going to be laying off over 3,000 employees. They're quoting 3,200, but that's a very rough top line number. So it might end up being a little bit more than that, might end up being a little bit less than that, but around 3,200. They're going to get rid of 1,600 now and then more over the next 12 months. There's 4 studios that are leaving Xbox entirely. So Compulsion Games, who made South of Midnight and Double Fine, obviously it's Brutal Legend and Stacking and all these games, will go independent. And Ninja Theory and Undead Labs have new buyers, but we don't know who they are. So it'd be interesting to see where they land. And then there's just brutal cuts elsewhere. 25% of Obsidian, Rebecca Valentine reported on Kotaku. Around 50% of id Software, game developer, and other places reported. Some really long time names, people who've worked at places like Bethesda Game Studios for 20, 30 years. Hundreds of people out at ZeniMax Online. It's pretty brutal. I mean, Kirk, what have you felt when you've been watching all this go down? What's your feeling been?
It's just a fucking disaster, isn't it? I mean, Spencer is responsible for a lot of it. He's failed the company. And then Ash has come in to fail it even more by the looks of it. She's in charge of federal jobs now, right? As well, which is very funny.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like cultural dismantling. The way they've dealt with id Software, for example, laying off the entire tech team, if rumors are to be believed, and And just then they're saying they want them to make their tentpole games faster with half the resources, and they've put Obsidian on Fallout, which is like a monkey's paw sort of situation, where it's what people wanted, but now they got half the team, and they're probably not as passionate about that project as they would be about their own thing. And they've got to work with Bethesda's engine, which is going to create all sorts of problems because it's obviously changed a lot since New Vegas as well. So they've got to learn the tools. There's just every direction of it is just bonkers.
Challenging, isn't it? Because the Fallout thing is a great example of I've seen a few different reactions. One reaction has been, well, it's about damn time. Microsoft should have told them that they had to do that years ago. And you can see the logic on that argument, but the argument also becomes clearly this wasn't happening before now because either Bethesda or Obsidian or both didn't want to do it. And so now you've got these devs doing something that they really didn't originally intend to do. Tom, what's your thoughts on the overall?
It's just sad, isn't it, really? You look at, we knew it was going to be a lot of people affected. They everything kind of leaked out, right? Like there was big stuff. Then you look at if you look at id, for example, who have been around for what, 5 years, something like that. I don't know, a long time. And you think of them as I guess how you think of when you're a kid, you think of your parents, right? They're going to be around forever. Like they're just there all the time, right? They're like such a kind of staple of the games industry. And you figured that they had Microsoft were talking about suggesting that maybe they're going to lean more heavily on owned software, owned technology rather than licensed stuff. And they have technology that the company is partly what it is because of the technology it made. And now that all seems to have been obviously they still have it, but the people that made it, that team's gone. So yeah, it's just sad that's happening. And then you get things like studios Undead Labs, who, as far as I could see, were one of the few that had made a successful kind of almost live servicey game in State of Decay, and 2 was really successful. 3 was looking decent, and it felt like, given the Xbox slate, that was kind of like a reasonably safe bet as a game that was going to do quite well, and they've been cut loose. Ninja Theory, they were allowed, I guess, to make a fairly niche game in Hellblade 2, but then the new one looked like exactly the kind of game that I guess people were saying, why don't you make a game like this that was going to maybe look like the kind of game Sony would make, right, as a Sony first party game. And they've gone, and obviously that's all because they're not what Xbox see as the main IP, the big Halos, the Gears, etc., the Forza kind of games, which they're focusing on, the Fallouts, Elder Scrolls, etc. But you kind of wonder, that they've got all this. Their new plan, I guess, is let's pump out more Halos, pump out more Gears, pump out more Fallout, etc. But these games some of these things they're cutting, there's going to be a void for a while. You can't just go, actually, let's have a new Fallout next year, please. It doesn't happen like that, right? So it feels like they're kind of gutting things, and then I don't know what they're going to do to fill this gap where there probably would have been all these other little games coming out to people would have liked, maybe not have sold them amazingly well. But it felt like that showcase, which seems like an absolute eternity ago now, which was last month, was actually we came off the back of that and we're like, yeah, some good stuff here, right? Good stuff. And then most of that stuff is now not even.
It's like an investor pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's so bizarre to look back at it now. But a lot of that stuff, I thought looked pretty good. Obviously, State of Decay, we talked about. Hellblade looked good. And it's just those things that exist, hopefully, and hopefully the people that are picking these things up will continue. There was some talk in the note, wasn't there, that the Xbox put out, that there was continued possibly continue a bit of investment in them to get those games published?
So
maybe?
they've got runway. They've got runway. All 4 studios have runway money, but this is actually the thing that I would say is that I've seen a lot of people saying, well, they've let them go. They haven't shut them down. So that's really good. And it is really good. But I don't think anybody should be under the illusions that this isn't a hard landing. Because, so you've got 2 versions of this hard landing, right? The harder one, without a shadow of a doubt, is the one that Compulsion and Double Fine are getting. Where the situation therein is they probably don't have any games that are close to release, given how recently their recent games came out. So that's why there's no third-party buyer for those guys, because they haven't got anything imminent. So if you're buying them, you might be waiting 2, 3, 4 years for a return on your investment. So Microsoft's giving them some runoff money to stand up projects of their own. But the thing is, that runoff money isn't going to fund Double Fine's next game. What that runoff money is going to do is fund Double Fine for a period of time. And in that period of time, Double Fine's going to have to try to find a publisher or find investment, find a plan to self-publish in order to, actually continue to operate. And if they don't find that by the time whatever deal Microsoft has given them expires, then we could be in a situation in 9 months, in 12 months, where we're looking at more cuts at those studios. So that's scary. And then the other version, obviously, the Ninja Theory and Undead Labs one is those guys have got games that are, sort of in the final stretch that are within 12 months of shipping or so. So that's obviously really attractive for whoever. I don't know who it might be, a 2K, whoever, who might come in and go, yeah, we'll publish State of Decay. But if that game is not a hit, doesn't meet expectation, whatever, who knows what situation those studios will end up in. So it's a really rocky departure. Mind you, a rocky departure is better than the alternative. And I do think, there were a lot of rumors, there was a lot of stuff said, and I do think there's never smoke without fire. And I think when a lot of that stuff was getting reported because it was being looked at and experimented with. So, a good example is, Chris String on the games business, he was saying, he obviously reported that Obsidian was in talks. And he said that ended up being not true at the time that he reported it. But the reason he reported it is he saw an internal document that was like the document that was about how they were, the document about how they were going to pitch the studios that they were selling to other people. And Obsidian was on that document. And so I think they were going, what are we going to do? Which ones are we getting rid of? Which ones are we keeping? Which speaks to the sort of crazy way that Microsoft has been operating.
All very last minute, right? It seems like. The thing about Hellblade as well, right? It's not my sort of game, but Hellblade 2 was the exact sort of game that the Xbox audience loves to show off in clips and stuff to show this is how powerful our system is and that sort of thing. It's like a Rise Son of Rome, right? It's one of those games where all those fanboys will share clips and be like, look how powerful the Xbox Series X is,
The fastest and most powerful game console on the planet, I believe, is the official terminology.
Exactly. And I mean, it might not be a big blockbuster, but it does something for the brand in that way,
Well, I think it speaks to a changing of the guard, right? Because my understanding was that State of Decay, for instance, was a particular favourite of Phil's. And so to see that go feels quite, his era is over. Although that one going is weird because Asher talked about the sort of game she wanted, and she talks about games that were creating social experiences and stuff like that. And State of Decay is exactly that. So I would have thought they would have wanted to have kept
I was
that.
really surprised by that because it just felt like we've seen how bad Sony been going after a live service game, right? That is successful. State of Decay is not like Destiny or anything, but it is the kind of game that they could have a long tail, make good money off long term. And it's just, I don't quite get why they've dropped that as such, but it's the whole thing's bizarre. I'm kind of surprised that the studios have been able to be sold off at all, really, because we look at what happened when Perfect Dark got cancelled, right? And they failed because of what? IP issues, ownership, I guess, of Perfect Dark.
I mean, we will see in terms of, that was a funny one because, again, that speaks to the difference in the eras. So when 2K was trying to buy Perfect Dark, my understanding of that situation is that deal fell apart because of the impositions that Microsoft wanted to put on the finished game after 2K had finished it. So, for instance, Microsoft was like, we'll sell you Perfect Dark, but I think it was something along the lines of, we'll sell you the game, we'll give you the leads, the studio, you can rescue the studio and stuff, but we want to keep the IP or keep a hand on the IP, maybe some sort of, first refusal on exclusivity of a sequel or something like that. And the big thing was they wanted to make sure that game remained a day one Game Pass game. And if you're 2K, you look at that and go, well, where's our money coming from then? And so then you end up in a situation where 2K were like, this isn't going to work for us, bye-bye. Now, the one thing that's already been said is that State of Decay is not going to be on Game Pass day one. So whoever
it's not a requirement, at least. I guess they could still.
Well, they could strike a Game
that.
Pass deal. But the point is, I guess that was something that when they cancelled Perfect Dark in the Phil era, they weren't willing to entertain that idea. And so Perfect Dark just literally didn't get rescued as a direct result of that. It is my understanding of what happened. Whereas in this case, they appear to be willing to let stuff go. Same for they've let Compulsion go with their IPs. So Compulsion own South of Midnight. So that's one of the avenues that's open to Compulsion now, right? In this difficult period of they need to find money. They've got this award-winning game. Can they find a way to kickstart sales? Same for Double Fine, PS5 version of Kiln, whatever. They're walking away with their IP, which is not something I think they would have done before. The funny thing is, though, well, not funny, but the notable thing is we're looking at the impact and we're looking at these studios and we're looking at the number of jobs within Microsoft. But game development is so decentralized now and game publishing is so decentralized now. I worry about the repercussions in a couple of months as contracts wind down or contracts that have already wound down at the end of this fiscal. The repercussions of those not getting renewed comes through. And you've already seen a bit of that in terms of the IO Interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's across all departments, outsourced PR, outsourced marketing, outsourced localization, translation, outsourced distribution for consoles. There will have been massive cuts in those areas as well. And who knows how many jobs are going to go, two, how that is going to impact the business. Jobs that aren't actually part of that 3,200 that are technically outside Microsoft, so they're technically not Microsoft's problem.
Even from a cold CEO perspective as well, it's all of this industry knowledge that's just going to leave the industry now and go to private sector jobs outside of the games industry. It's what a fucking waste, man.
It's a huge, as it always is when we get these sort of cuts, it's a huge loss because the amount of knowledge and expertise we lose as an industry is a massive bummer.
Sony had this recently, right? They gutted Bungie, right? And at the same time, they're saying, let's keep making live service games. But the studio they spent a fortune on to make live service games has been stripped back massively. It's all I get that maybe the thing that they were currently doing maybe wasn't making the money they wanted or whatever. But those people have done stuff that most studios dream of doing, right? Which is making a hugely successful live service game. And then most of them are gone. It's hard to make sense of it other than from let's cut the money now to save us some money in our next yearly report.
It's a stock game, isn't it? At the end of the day, they're not thinking of a company that sells products. They're thinking someone is beholden to their shareholders.
I was literally told that there was an amount of cents on the dollar where basically they were looking at studios and things like that and going, well, if you're not returning more than X amount on every dollar spent, that's not enough. You've got to either change or go. And so this is what's happened with IdTech, right? I said this on when I went on Chris String's show on the game business, but I said about you can see a world in which id becomes a jewel in Microsoft's crown, but the way the Spencer era worked was there was no real rush to integrate, and something I've been told is part of that is because of the success of Minecraft. The Minecraft Mojang acquisition left Mojang alone, and that was so successful, made so much money off that. They were like, well, this is the way you do it. And actually, I've been told that LinkedIn when Microsoft acquired LinkedIn and did it in a very hands-off way, the reason that was so hands-off was literally because Microsoft as a broader organization had learned from the Minecraft thing. But then they applied that to all these other game studios. And you can see a world where id Tech becomes the de facto engine for a lot of Microsoft games. And if you end up in that world, id Tech, the return on the dollar it gives you will be way higher.
Yeah,
and it would be worth keeping all those guys.
They acquired Bethesda, and Bethesda had a lot of this inter-department stuff going on already, right? They had Arcane helping on the Wolfenstein games. id would come in and show studios how to do guns, and they could have learned from that and applied it across their whole portfolio, but they didn't. So
yeah, and obviously there are then there's the loss of all the people and stuff like that, which is a real bummer. But also there's the video game fan losses. So it's like we learned this week that id had pitched a Perfect Dark game and a Doom multiplayer game, and there was an original IP as well. And it's like, and Life is Pain, certainly for people who like Perfect Dark. And if you liked Avowed, sounds like Avowed 2 is dead. Again, just a real bummer.
we'll never get another Pentiment, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's those are the sort of projects that just feels like there's a lot of missed opportunity within Microsoft. I think that's what we look at now. Like, Pentiment is a game that works as a portfolio play, and the portfolio play is when you want lots of different types of games and lots of scale and lots of variety. And actually, I think that's what this ultimately is. This is the ultimate admission that Game Pass has failed. Because it's literally them throwing the hands up and going, we don't need these smaller games because we're no longer trying to get people to subscribe to a service.
Do you think all of this is Game Pass or Call of Duty, though? Or a mix of both?
I think it's inevitably going to be a mix. I think the thing about Call of Duty is the catalog business for Call of Duty is so big that even though they had a really bad year with last year's game, it was still a hugely profitable chunk of the business.
They just
all
ported
the people
Black Ops 1 and 2 to PC as well, didn't they?
Well, this is what I mean. Yeah, it's that, and back catalog is where I think they failed a lot on like, I don't know how you don't do like a very cheap and dirty like Banjo-Kazooie double pack for the Switch. I just do not understand, because I reckon you'd sell 1 million, 2 million units just doing that. And it's never been something they've considered. But I think it's also because they've had their eye on the prize longer term, as opposed to, so the idea of, we could do a Banjo 2-pack and that would make Rare profitable for 2 years maybe. They're not interested in 2 years. They're thinking about longer term, because Microsoft, the whole thing is they want to have growth every year, year on year on year on year. And doing something that only gives you a bump for 2 years is less relevant than plowing loads of resources into an Everwild, hoping you've got the next Minecraft on your hands.
Sea of Thieves must have done gangbusters though, right? Because they've survived all this with, Everwild being in development hell for however long.
Yeah, I mean, they had some cuts before, right? But also, I think, Sea of Thieves is the example of, I don't think you can come out and make noise about how you're doing a Sea of Thieves movie and using it as one of the prime examples of what your goal is, and then cut loads of people from Rare. Although people tend to forget, Rare is the studio behind Sea of Thieves, but you look in those credits, loads of other studios help on Sea of Thieves. It's not just a Rare game anymore.
Sea of Thieves definitely it feels like it's in a not maintenance as such, but a kind of a it's like it feels like they're gearing up for something else rather than that. That's in let's just put out some updates, keep the fan base happy while we do something else type mode at the moment, right?
But it feels
Who
to
knows
me
what
like
that is, but
you look at what they're doing, like the new update that they're doing is sort of giving
UGC,
players
innit?
creation tools. And what I see when I see that is we're handing Sea of Thieves to the players so you can make UGC, and they're going to make Sea of Thieves too.
Or we're Robloxifying all our shit.
Maybe, but I think it's more likely they're going to do a sequel. So you got to think that's an Xbox One game. There's a lot of lessons they've learned. There's a lot of tech stuff they probably can't do on the engine as it is. So the time's probably come for them to do another one. But before you do another one, why not give the players ownership to keep that player base up for UGC stuff? Anyway, it's a real bummer, and I think the true cost isn't quite, shown yet. So we'll have to see how things shake out over the coming weeks. It's a bummer to be just starting out on this website and be having the conversations be about stuff like this, though, that's for sure.
There was a guy at Xbox who was laid off who was there for like 37 years, and he was the guy he made the back compat for Xbox, which was like one of their biggest announcements. And he's just...
And he was not just a 37-year Xbox veteran, but a 37-year Microsoft veteran. If you looked at the stuff this guy had worked on, it's amazing he didn't get transferred to another department. But I guess part of the problem is when you've been somewhere for 37 years, you're probably very, very expensive.
It proves that it's a fucking spreadsheet game, though, doesn't it? They've just looked at you like cold statistically and gone, it's like you said, pennies on the dollar. Or what.
I think big companies are always like that, right? It's all. It's not about individual contribution or anything. It's about like, what can we do to make this number happen based on these other numbers?
Yeah, we've been there. We've been there. But yeah, it is a numbers game, but I just worry that sometimes they're cutting their nose off to spite their face. Sometimes they're not seeing the wood for the trees. But the other thing I'd say is, it's like, I don't love everything that Asher is doing, obviously, and there's just horrific consequences for the, for the industry at large in terms of the talent leaving and stuff like that. But what I will say is all this is a reaction to everything that went wrong and the colossal overreach of the Phil era.
Well, absolutely. You don't got to hand it to her, though.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and we'll see. I mean, and yes, there is the irony, as you mentioned, this insane, cruel irony at the very end. So Asher Sharma, the Xbox CEO, was named, I think yesterday, so just right after all the layoffs, as an advisor to the US Federal Reserve on a panel that deals with jobs and productivity. That panel's whole job, its whole goal, its primary goal, is to lower unemployment and make America more productive. And they've put her on that right after she's committed to laying off 3,200 people. The majority of them are probably in America.
It's insane, isn't it? Like, if you wrote that in like a comedy sketch, it'd be too on the nose, I think.
Yeah, it's like proper brass eye stuff, isn't it? But yeah. So from one story, we talked about Xbox. Let's quickly talk about Sony. Obviously, the news last week before the site had officially launched was about Sony announcing that they're going to be discontinuing the production of PlayStation game discs or certifying new ones. So there'll be a cutoff. Is it 2028? The cutoff?
I think so.
Yeah, early January 28, I think.
Yeah.
So basically, any game out after that date, you won't be able to get a physical version. You'll just be able to get a code in a box or a digital download. The reaction to this has been pretty visceral, I would say.
They can't tweet anymore, can they?
No. And there's a petition which I think is pushing towards 250,000 signatures. I guess my question is this totally a losing battle? Do you think...
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
It's done. This was done ages ago. Like, this is...
They shut the factories down, didn't they?
They're not reversing it, because I don't see how it... Like, this is a... Like, to be clear, like, I haven't bought an actual game on a disc for a long time. I'm not against ownership and having collections, and I feel sorry for everybody that wants game preservation and having physical discs and collecting stuff and putting it on the shelves. But from a, is this going to affect me point of view, it isn't, probably, because I just don't. Like, I own probably about 6 games. Literally, my house, there's 6 games, and 4 of those are PGR games. So I don't have like a massive desire to collect. I've never collected stuff. What I do think is bad is that, like, I'm me, a 40-year-old man, but as a kid, I used to buy games all the time. And I used to go, and because I traded everything, because I didn't have enough money to buy and keep games. So I literally would go and trade, not just games, I'd trade everything. And like, had a PlayStation, trade that in for an N64, had an N64, trade that in for another PlayStation because I got bored and wanted a PlayStation back, etc. And I think if you are like that audience that is relying on that to experience more stuff and just jump from one thing to the other. It's a massive shame that that's going to be no longer an option. But I don't think there's any coming back from it. Like, I think this essentially has been happening for well over a decade, probably, the build up to this. Fact that, like, I think there was, like, we've already had consoles released this generation, but don't have disk drives in them, right? And I can't see, I fully expected the next consoles not to have a disk drive at all. I think most people probably would have thought that if maybe they hoped they might, or an option to have one, but I think it was inevitable, like, this was happening. I can't see, I mean, so this is all about Sony now. Xbox are clearly going to do the same thing.
You
Nintendo,
don't think that a short-sighted Xbox desperate to score points is going to do it? I don't think they'd include it, but a disk drive add-on, for instance.
I think an add-on maybe, but then they've got to commit to making the stuff, right? And I just don't think it's worth it for them particularly. And then Nintendo, I think Nintendo is slightly different in that their audience is slightly different, and like maybe it's just a naive way of seeing it, but I still think like a Switch game is a birthday present, a Christmas present, right? And a lot of people buy their kids or their family members like a Switch game for Christmas, right? Whatever. And if that disappears, like, it's already hard enough to buy kids stuff as it is, because all the things we had as kids are gone, right? You can't buy them a bloody film because everything's on Netflix or Disney or whatever. But yeah, I think Nintendo will probably stick around with physical stuff for a while. I can't see.
Even then, you said Nintendo stick around physical stuff for a while. Like, Nintendo put out the hyper mainstream Animal Crossing-esque Pokemon spin-off, and it wasn't on the cart.
Do we know if carts are cheaper to produce than Blu-rays?
No, discs are way cheaper.
But was it a game key thing? Was it?
It was a game key card. So, but the reason you do a game key card on Nintendo is because, and this comes to Kirk's question as well. So fabricating discs is way cheaper than consoles. I mean, that was true in the 90s. That is why that was the deciding factor for Hironobu Sakaguchi deciding to do Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation. Although the load times and the CG movies and all this stuff was of interest, the thing that he's on the record saying, the thing that convinced him was when Sony was like, oh, by the way, it's X number of cents per disc, whereas a Nintendo cart was X number of dollars. There's also the funny thing with Nintendo of, I think this is still true, it's definitely true in the past, but I'm pretty sure it's still true that all Switch carts, all of them, are all made in Japan by Nintendo. So and this was always the case going back to the 90s. So if you're Ubisoft, you can't make your own Switch carts, fabricate them in a factory in China, then ship them. You have to buy the carts off Nintendo at the cost Nintendo sets, and they ain't cheap. And so the reason game key cards exist is because obviously when you buy those carts, you also pay more for the data size on the card. So if you buy a key card and if you ship your game on a key card instead, you can pay much less because you only need a cart that's like got 12 gigabytes of space just to hold the base data.
You can still trade that though, right? That game can still be sold. You can still trade it,
yeah.
Which I think is like, maybe the audience for this isn't as big as I think it is, but I think there's a big difference between, like, as much as it's kind of a middle ground, I guess. You're not getting the game preservation angle that you get of, like, which I think has been gone for a while, to be fair, right? Things that rarely ship with everything complete on a disc, and that's it, right? There's billion patches for everything. But at least with the key card stuff, game key, you can then go to your local game store and go, oh, give me 20 quid for this, please. And I'll have that new
what local game store?
Yeah, that's true.
The online local game store that will only dare to buy Switch games from now on. But I think there's... Go on.
I was just going to say, in an ideal world, like the savings that they're making on not having to make the boxes for the games and stuff would come to the customers, but that's not going to happen, is it? They're still going to be 70 quid and they're going to stay that price for a year or more, you know? So look at Nintendo games, they don't really go down in price, not for a long time.
I mean, Nintendo, it lives in a different world, to be fair.
It does, yeah.
The preservation angle, I will say, that's something I feel quite strongly about. And the funny thing with the preservation element is that what it means is I hope that consoles get cracked way sooner. To give you a specific example, right? If you want to play the fucked up version of Cyberpunk 2077 from launch, you can go and buy a PlayStation 4 disc or an Xbox disc at Computer Exchange, disconnect your console from the internet, and play that version of the game. It's a time capsule. But if you've obviously got a digital version on PC without doing piracy, there's no way to play that version anymore. And that's one thing that we'll be heading towards. And the only way you avoid that is by having having consoles cracked enough that games can be dumped. And a really good example actually is Elden Ring, right? Where, and I should say before someone shouts at me, obviously I know there's no way on PC because you can back up your Steam data, game file data, and use piracy to boot it. But I mean, there's no natural way. You can't just put a disc in that way. And Elden Ring is also a really good example where, God, they were changing and iterating that game so much in the run up to launch that I had to scrap guides that I'd written during the review period because the stuff I'd written was irrelevant because they'd patched the game.
They were
so
moving
significantly.
NPCs around and shit, weren't they? It was crazy.
Yeah. But again, that base version of Elden Ring is on the disc, and you can totally go and experience that if that's what you desire. So on that front, the preservation thing, it bums me out a bit.
I think another good example is when Rockstar made those remasters of the old
Cut
GTA
music out.
games. They cut music out. You know, there was a lot of problems with like artwork and weird textures and stuff, and they replaced the old versions with those games. And it's not the original game, is it? So
No, but at least in that case, you've got the original game on disc. That's the sort of it's today's original games.
Yeah,
like GTA 6 GTA 6 is an example of like that is a digital only game. And if Rockstar lands in a situation where there's something offensive and it's more offensive than they thought and they patch it out, or they run into a, rights issue with a billboard or with a weapon. That was one of the things in those remasters is that those old GTAs came out in an era when the weapon companies didn't pay attention to video games. So if you had an Uzi, you literally had an Uzi 1-to-1. And now these days, everything's got to be slightly weird variations to avoid getting sued, and they had to replace all the weapons in Vice City for the remaster. And so if something like that happens to GTA 6, what will happen is a patch will come down and then everyone will have that version again. But I suppose that's small potatoes compared to the cash element, like you say, of games.
Do you think Rockstar had been talking to Sony, about this diskless future for a while, and that gave them the gonads to say, look, we're not launching on disc?
I reckon they've just seen that CX has got about 800 copies of GTA 4 in here, and they've gone, we're not getting any money off those.
Yeah.
So, but I know they get a lot of their stuff. They get people in via the online stuff as well, right? But I don't know. All of it to me feels like they just want not Rockstar as such, but the platform holders just want complete control of everything they sell, right?
Well, they did this before, didn't they? With those, you remember those online codes we used to get in the box? You have to put a code in, and you only get one. And I remember buying.
The online pass. Massive had one and stuff.
I bought a pre-owned copy of one of the UFC games and got it home, and the code was invalid. I was like, for fuck's sake, I can't even play the game. It's crazy. I just paid like 20.
Well, you could play, right, but you couldn't play online, right?
Yeah, but that was what I was wanting to play,
Yeah. Weird. Well, that segues us nicely, though, because from publishers having, or companies, console makers having absolute control, to a console maker doing something that they have no control over. And that is the news of this week that the Nintendo Switch will be discontinued in Europe in early 2027. So not even a long way away, in like 6 months. It'll still be sold, but basically, once they've reached that point, they won't be manufacturing anymore. So once the stock that is out in Europe, and Europe, by the way, in this definition, is anyone that works through Nintendo of Europe. So that's the UK, even though we're not in the EU. Or though we are in Europe geographically, of course, and maybe that's Australia as well. I'm not quite sure. It is often the case that Australia runs through the European offices. It's basically, Nintendo hasn't said why they're doing this, but because it's EU only, it's pretty clear that this is due to there's some new EU legislation which you're going to notice in all your electronic devices, which is that any battery-powered device that takes like a lithium-ion battery or whatever has to have easily replaceable batteries. Like a consumer has to be able to buy a battery, a new one, take the back off with minimal nonsense without voiding their warranty and put a new battery in. And there's
Which
actually,
is good, right? This
it's
is a good thing. On my last phone, my battery swelled up and that's it. It's fucked, right? And I couldn't do anything about it. It's out of warranty. That's it. I could have spent a fortune buying a new battery, but because it's not just an off-the-shelf, like, easy thing, it
Might
was
as well
just
get a
not
new
worth,
phone,
wasn't
right?
worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've disliked built-in batteries for a while because, like the PlayStation controllers, right? Like I've had multiple of those just die on me. I've had one. Is it the Elite controller? It's the Elite controller, right? It has a built-in battery, and not one of my early ones of those died eventually. I mean, I've had like in my house that gets used a lot, so maybe it's unfair to say that that's died. But
Yeah, but they're like
that could have been
160 quid, aren't they?
that would have been fixed. I could just been able to whip out the battery, put a new one in. So it's a good thing that this is happening. I don't have anything else to say on it. It's just I'm happy that things can be fixed.
I think it's an arbiter of things to come, right? It's like you said, so like everyone is going to have to abide by these rules. So you're going to see it hit other products. And actually, there's a Switch 2 revision coming to Europe, which is obviously going to be the same machine, but the only difference is going to be it's going to have been retooled to allow the battery to be swapped. But Nintendo has obviously decided it's not worth doing that revision for the 10-year-old. 10-year-old? 10? Is that right? Think so?
I don't know, mate.
10. It is 10 next in February, isn't it, or something? It's 10 in February.
That sounds about right. Yeah, it was around that time of year, wasn't it?
Just reminders of our own mortality. Why don't
Yes. But yeah, little story, but I think interesting, little sign of things to come. And hey, some good like governmental legislation. Like this is the thing. If we're talking about the death of the disc and ownership and stuff like that, and not feeling like you're renting games, you've got this stop killing games thing moving through the European Commission, and maybe the Commission can come up with something that actually forces action on the part of publishers and platform holders, like this is forcing action. It's not all bendy bananas, apparently.
Do you think they could come up with some sort of way to trade digital games? Like, is that something they could do?
Well, I think they could come up with anything they wanted to. And would they ever want to do that? Absolutely bloody not.
It'd go
Thing
as
is,
some
like,
way to
it's
placate
like,
people,
why would they be wanting to? Because the scenario is, I've got a digital game, I could sell it back to
That's true.
Sony or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And then they give me half the price, and then to someone else, that digital code is the same, is essentially worth the same as it always would have done. So they could sell it to someone else for full price, but then they've just given me 30 quid that they didn't really have to do. I don't think there's any way
Well,
that's happening.
What I will say
basically.
is where we can get a bit better is like, I do think like Switch 2's like, and actually it's on the Switch 1 as well, isn't it? Like the virtual cartridge stuff, where in a family account situation, you can pass those virtual cartridges back and forth. It's really, and you can pass them back and forth between consoles. Is really good, and hopefully more of them are better at that. So Microsoft are pretty good about that as well, in terms of, you know, you log into your account on any Xbox and one quick online authentication, you've got access to everything. But that obviously is no substitute for selling your games back.
Was it the PS3 that had it where you could have like 5 accounts on the same? Like, because I did it with a few friends. Would like have our accounts on each other's PlayStations. You just have access to your whole library.
It's like the police coming around. I can hear the sirens. Like,
they got rid of that pretty quick when it comes to PS4 gen. So
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Moving on, just a quick, you know, obviously we launched the site this week, so there's been a lot going on, but just, you know, some quick little highlights. Tom, you reviewed Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced.
mhm.
Do you want to give folk a bit of a quick summary of your thoughts?
So yeah, I think Black Flag is, I don't know if it's considered the fan favorite Assassin's Creed game, but it's definitely up there as like the one people go from the older school ones before they went all like vast RPG style, right? Like we've got The Witcher, but in Assassin's Creed style. I think it's the one that people go, I love. That's the one I love. It's like amazing, the Assassin's Creed game that everyone should play. So I guess that's why they went for this one first as a remaster remake rather than going 1, 2, etc. I'd never played Black Flag. I mean, I say never played it. I probably did because I played everything, but I never played it much. Like I'd got burnt out pretty much on Assassin's Creed games after. I think even though this is officially called 4, I think there are probably at least 6 before this, right? There were other ones that weren't titled with numbers and
They
stuff.
were yearly as well at that point, weren't they?
There was a lot of them, right? And
Yeah.
I kind of stopped playing after, I think maybe the one before 3 came out. And then I picked up again with Origins and stuff. So this is like a chance to see whether it was actually worth like why people love it. And it's clear, it's obvious why people love it. It's because it gives you the kind of large scale kind of feel of an open world adventure without all the bollocks that goes into modern open world games. Like it's a lot of just floating about in a boat and just seeing where you go, stopping off at an island, seeing what's there, doing a few fun little quests and stuff. But you're not overwhelmed with stuff to do. There's not a million different bars you've got to try and max out and level up and everything else. And they've done, I can't say how it compares to the original outside of what I've seen has changed, but the combat is like, it feels like how I kind of remember Assassin's Creed games being, but it isn't. Like it's a lot, I think it's like back then it was super simple. Like it was super, like everything was trying to be Arkham, right? That Arkham style, like everything's like a quick counter. And it felt a bit sort of like, routine and sort of like you're just performing like a little dance around all these people and they're dying. Whereas this feels a bit more like involved. There's more to the combat. The ship stuff is great. Like it's like you get the sense that you're doing stuff without actually having like it's quite simple. Like it's not like it's not a simulation of running a pirate ship or anything. And you manage to be in control of the boat and all the combat as well with all the cannons and everything else. That feel like too much. It's just a fun game that doesn't sort of drown in all the other stuff, which I think that's how Assassin's Creed games used to be before you got the classic, like the meme, like here's a picture of the Assassin's Creed map and it's just icons, right? And it's just every Ubisoft game is just climb the tower to reveal the icons type stuff. This feels from an era before that slightly, where it's still not a small game. Like to do everything in this, you're looking at probably, don't know, 25, 30 hours or something probably to see a lot of it, all of the main stuff. Plus they added some new side stuff and they've added some new end missions and stuff. But it's just like a kind of game that it feels like it's the right mix of like slightly sort of linear adventuring with a bit of questing and stuff around to get you from place to place, which I think for me works. If you want that bigger, more open feel, like literally there's so much stuff to do, you're never going to get bored. This isn't that. But I think it's a fun game. It looks amazing as well. Like I played it on the PS5 Pro. It looks great. I saw a bit of chatter about how like the original still looks amazing, so why bother updating it? It does look good if you look at it in the right way, but it doesn't look as good as this. Like this is like, it's the same. I had similar feelings to when they updated The Last of Us for PS5, because The Last of Us is a good looking game, but the remake looked like proper great, right? And it made sense because they had the TV show and stuff, get it up to date so people can jump in a modern experience of that game. This is similar in that this is like the game that most people remember with some tweaks, but it just looks significantly better. I mean, for me, I don't know what I'd love to know, like the costings around this versus a completely new Assassin's Creed game, because it feels like they could just mine this for a while now, right? Like remake 1, remake 2, 3 could have a proper job done on
Just
on
don't
it.
do it. Leave it alone.
But I think there's this. I've got an article coming, it might be out by the time this goes live, about why I love remakes, and I think there's a lot of like scope in it. Like people don't like it remakes as such because I guess they'd rather something new is being made, or they don't want the original touch. But I think as long as the original exists, we talked about this a bit earlier with like ownership of games and what they can do if it never gets released. But in this case, I could go back and play this on a PS4, and that's the original version, right? Or the PS3 even, ropey, but it exists. But then this new version is there if you want it. And I think a lot of people do. Like from what I've seen, this is tracking to do really well. And I think I'd be very much up for like this, but done for the other older Assassin's Creed games, because I think people have got slightly tired of the new Assassin's Creed formula. I wasn't mega into Mirage as like it was fine, but I didn't love it.
Forgettable. Very
Yeah,
forgettable.
and I think this just feels like has more of a like the tone. I think is much more fun than
Better
a lot of
written than
more
most
games.
Assassin's
Yeah,
Creeds as well. I do think it's funny that they replaced all the modern bullshit. I don't know if you remember from the original, it was first person like puzzle sections.
yeah.
They replaced that with some shit in this where you're just carrying a chest around in this like
It's weird, like this weird like black blobby cyber person,
Why have
like
they
from
done
like
that?
from like a 90s CGI
Like
TV
Tron
show or something. Yeah, and it's like fine, but I mean, to be honest, it's just like I quite liked the modern day stuff, the old Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah.
I get why they've redone it, because if you come into this without having played, like, because this was what the 6th game or something in the Assassin's Creed series at that point, you're not going to get that. It wouldn't make any sense just throwing it out there. But I do think there's a lot of like remakes I could see being it's already quite a big thing, but some of these studios that are like publishers that are struggling to make money, essentially make good enough profits. Like if there's if these things are considerably cheaper to make than the next big Assassin's Creed, why wouldn't you go back and do this to the other ones? Because I think the audience will be keen for it, even if the online commentary is maybe a bit more negative.
Well, look at Night Dive. They've made a whole business out of touching up games, and they do a fucking amazing job of it. And then Blue Point, until Sony killed them, was doing good stuff there as well. So
Yeah, that sounds good. I might have to give that a go, because I think I do remember playing it, but I don't think I played it that much. And I think it was because the third one annoyed me so much. I'd fallen out of love with Assassin's Creed at the time. That Black Flag being the 4th, it didn't, even though it was good, it didn't bring me back in. I also remember that was a good year for action adventure games, because that was like GTA 5 year, that was Last of Us 1 year. So I'll have to give that a go. Should say I've been playing. I haven't had a chance to write it up because it's been so busy, but I will write it up. Rhythm Heaven on Switch 2. It's actually on Switch 1 as well, isn't it? But yeah, that new one is lovely. Those games are all the same. They're all like really lovely 8 out of 10s. So it's another really lovely 8 out of 10. Yeah, so there's that. Recommend people check out Tom playing Elden Ring, an Elden Ring piece on the YouTube channel.
Don't bother.
how are you getting on, Tom?
All right. The main takeaway is I swear a lot, like far more. Like I showed this. I thought before I show it to anyone else, I show my son, right? Because he's like me in that he's obsessed. Like he plays a lot of games, right? Like he obviously does because he's my son and he idolizes me. So he's like, plays everything. I was like, watch this video. What do you think? You're not allowed to play it because it's an 18 or whatever, but watch it, whatever. And I'm like literally swearing like all the time. And now my daughter who watched it, who's only 5, constantly says bollocks all the time now. She just comes out and says bollocks. And then she'll go something like, you can't say the S word. And then I'll say, what's the S word? And she'll say bollocks. Like she has no clue, but she says it all the time. And the next episode actually is far worse. Like the amount of swearing in that is unbelievable. But yeah, like I've never got on with those games really.
Are you better or worse than Miller though?
Probably better. Miller was always actually reasonably good. He just made it seem like he wasn't. Whereas I'm like at the point where I've decided like I literally can't learn how to play these games properly, and I'm thinking about playing it again for the next episode. I already can't remember what the controls are, to be honest. Like I'll have to do a little run around before I start recording.
Go for a mage build, man. Make it easier for yourself.
We'll see how it goes. Like I've read nothing about it other than I was being told that I should use flasks. So I Googled what a flask was. That's the level of like my knowledge of this game. So we'll see how we go. Like we'll grow as we go along, and maybe by this time in 3 years when I finish it, I'll be really good.
Maybe.
Can't wait for the Melania fight. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, that's the funny thing about Elden Ring is far more than the other Souls games. There does come a point when you turn the corner and it clicks. So we'll have to see if that point ever comes for you, Tom, or if you're just miserable for the whole time. I should say there's a couple of cool articles on our sister site, on RPG site. We obviously weren't fully operating, so we didn't do the Blood of the Dawnwalker preview, but there's a pretty good write-up on that on RPG. There's also this lovely interview with an independent Japanese dev who's done like almost a solo game called Veritas Tales, Witch of the Dark Castle. This is a guy who used to work at Capcom, used to work at Vanillaware, but it's like a digital version of a physical game book. So, you get a game book and you'd flip through it and there'd be maps and you'd have a column down the side where you'd write in your character stats. So sort of like an RPG in book form. He's made that in a digital form for PC. It's really interesting. So I recommend have a read of that interview. And there's a huge backlog of stuff on Respec because we were posting stuff long before we launched. I feel like oftentimes when we do this section, we'll just be highlighting a few things, but this week there's way too much to highlight. What have you been playing, Kirk, before we quickly do our last section?
I've been playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake. It's all right. And I've been playing shitloads of Nightreign, to be honest. Just doing all the deeper the night stuff, and I got five wins in a row the other day. I was well chuffed. But I've gotten the reads of like making proper sweaty builds in that game, and it's very good. I got this guy Raider. I'm trading damage with all the bosses and just like standing and banging with them, and it feels great. So
I should go back to that. I haven't been back since the DLC came out.
Yeah, see, that's what got me back into it, because I've not until now I hadn't touched DLC, and the new bosses are quite cool. And then you've got like the amped up versions of the old bosses as well, which are really cool. Yeah, it's worth checking out.
Are you two looking forward to? Is it Dustbloods? Is it Dustbloods?
Fucking can't wait for it. Yeah,
because
I'm very excited.
That's an online Souls-like, right?
Yeah, I mean, what makes me excited about it is I remember Miyazaki saying that the original multiplayer in the Souls games was inspired by him breaking down on a hill covered in snow, and then two people just driving up behind him and pushing him up a hill, and it was like two strangers cooperating with me in that way. Made me want to implement multiplayer in a similar way, and I just want to know what kind of mad thing he's done here with multiplayer, because they've got these systems in it where everyone's got like Werewolves Among Us, everyone's got like their own objective or whatever. So someone will be like, you've got to team up with this player, and then another one will be like, you've got to assassinate this player, or you've got to kill this boss. So everyone's got like conflicting objectives or cooperative objectives as well, and it would just be cool to see how those things like interact with that formula.
I'm very excited. Also because that's being published by Nintendo. I'm curious about how his sensibility interacts with the Nintendo side producer, the thoughts they will bring to the table, the Nintendo attitude. I can't wait.
The game chat. Can I be like a knight in the game chat? My face change, would it lip sync to a undead knight or something? I don't know.
I wouldn't even notice the difference if it did. So
we will see.
Rude.
I'm sure we'll learn a bit more about that relatively soon. It feels like the time will be coming up for that to happen, and I'm very, very. That'll be a game that probably gets its own Nintendo Direct, like a standalone Direct, and I will probably watch it like 6 times to devour every detail.
It's funny how every console gets their FromSoft game, don't they? They're like, I'll have one, then I'll have one, and they're all just Bloodborne.
Well, Xbox doesn't get one.
Was Sekiro not Xbox timed exclusive? No,
I think it was on everything.
Oh, was
the last
it?
time
Yeah.
the last time Xbox had a From Software exclusive was, I'm sure, what was it called? Ninja
Was it the
Blade?
one with the control? Ninja Blade was good.
Yeah, like it was a Ninja Gaiden
Ninja
knockoff.
Blade 2.
Did
Is
they
that
do a
also them?
sequel?
I'm sure there was a sequel. Was there? Did I imagine that? I remember reviewing the first one. It was good.
Good game though, Ninja Blade. Underrated. Obviously no Miyazaki involvement, but nevertheless, it was a good Ninja Theory. That and didn't From Software do Enchanted Arms launch Xbox 360 JRPG,
Really?
where one of the characters is the most offensively stereotypical gay people you've ever seen in your life. That character could not exist in the form he exists in that game today.
Wasn't FromSoft behind Tenchu as well? Or am I imagining
that because Sekiro was like a spiritual successor to Tenchu.
I loved those games.
Yeah,
That'd be cool if they made a new one.
Yeah. And so we're gonna finish off with what will be a regular little drop, which is our retro respective. Hey, where we just we're gonna
I don't get it.
we're gonna make everyone feel a little bit old, or at least those of you who are old feel a little bit old. Where we just talk about things that happened and games that came out on this week in the past on, significant anniversaries. So in the last week, Pokemon Go turned 10 years old, which is crazy. I mean, were you on VG 24/7, Kirk, when that was starting out, or was it only later? Only later, right? I just remember when it was an assignment coming in and very few other people covered it, and we were like, yeah, we're going to go for this.
I remember us being all over it, yeah.
I don't play it anymore, but I saw they did a big event in Times Square this week, where they sort of recreated the first advert for the game in real life. And they had Mewtwo on the billboards in Times Square and stuff. And I did feel a pang of nostalgia for walking around. Like I got in my car and drove to places to meet friends, to walk around parks, to do specific events and stuff. Yes,
I never got the appeal of it until I went to a Monster Hunter Now event in Tokyo, and I was just walking around with loads, and the Japanese people are obviously really into Monster Hunter, and there's just people everywhere in their phones and chatting, and the atmosphere is really cool. And if it's been like that around here, maybe I'd have got into it, but I live in Lincoln.
I caught a Bulbasaur at a National Trust once.
Nice.
That's it. That's my experience of Pokemon Go. Don't get it.
Well, thanks for that insight. We've also got, I think this is a great one, 20 years old, Prey.
I think I reviewed that.
That's because you
pretty
are
sure.
old. But Prey, that was obviously a human head joint. May that studio, rest in peace.
Good game. Got the portals, cool looking portals.
I just remember, what about the intro to that game? In the bar with the jukebox.
Fear the Reaper. Is it Fear the Reaper?
Yeah. Don't fear the Reaper.
Don't fear the Reaper? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know music.
You don't want to fear the Reaper, do you?
Fear the Reaper? I want to fear the Reaper. Do I want to fear the Reaper?
No, you
don't. I don't know.
The song is telling you to not. So
yeah.
Don't fear the Reaper.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I've been going wrong all these years. Fearing it.
But anyway, bloody good game. Hey, we talked about it earlier. That was an id Tech game. That was an id Tech 4 game. And yeah, the use of the portals was really clever. And the spirit mechanic.
In my mind, it exists in the same space as Darkness. I don't know if that came out around the same time.
100%. 100%. I agree.
Like they
I think character models look quite similar and stuff, and like the main guy.
It was a year later than Darkness. Maybe? It was a year later than Darkness.
Yeah, it's weird.
And they were both published by 2K, so there was an element of the 2K portfolio at that point. Both really good. I remember Prey being one of those really early, 360 showcase games. Like, look at what this console can do. And that era when Microsoft enjoyed de facto exclusives, it wasn't on PlayStation because it was a PC game and it was easy to port to Xbox. So they just ported it to Xbox, right? Something that Microsoft could no longer rely on. But hey, Prey, 20 years old, which is
it's fucked.
Also, hey, game within a game, which I love, and it had a Pac-Man knockoff, didn't it? In the bar at the start that you could play on the arcade machine.
Yeah, it's a great bit of world building. That whole intro was really, and then you don't go back to Earth for the whole game, do you?
Nope.
That's the only bit on Earth.
And I'll forever, be sad that we never got to see Human Head's version of Prey 2. Not that the Prey that we got, the reboot, wasn't good.
Yeah, but Arcane was saddled with that name. They didn't want that. That was Bethesda just saying, we've got a name. You're having it. And it backfired on them, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. which we'll find out the fate of Arcane in the coming months, I think. Other ones, last couple, Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. So that's the Game Boy Castlevania 2. That's 35 years old. I remember that game being good. I remember the Game Boy Castlevania 2 being an action game more than the NES one, where it was full of esoteric, annoying puzzles that were impossible to figure out without a guidebook. Yeah, that's
Game Boy was shit, so I couldn't play it.
mate. I'm gonna make I think we should make you play some Game Boy games at some
I
stage.
fucking hated the Game Boy.
They're even worse now.
I've got one over there. Rubbish.
Great machine, one of the greatest machines of all
No.
time. Home to the best game of all time,
Which,
I mean, that's
which is
fine.
Tetris.
Tetris.
Oh, okay.
But-
I mean, you can.
Tetris
I had a
is
machine
fine.
with just Tetris on it. You know. You can
Well,
get
yeah,
that.
but it was a Game Boy game first. And lastly, we've got Virtua Fighter 5, which is 20, which I cannot believe.
That new Virtua Fighter looks really good. Actually.
So that's why I thought we could. This could lead, because I saw it and it's really interesting because it's like it's a Shenmue game, really.
Yeah, I like the way that like the parries are like really natural and stuff. That it's not just like he's in a guard stance and then they punch his guard stance. You're actually moving the hands and stuff. It's really cool.
That's always been the
Checking
Virtua
leg
Fighter
kicks
way.
and that.
It's always looked more visceral and real than
Yeah.
a Street Fighter or a Tekken. But I just wonder, like, if I saw them at Summer Games Fest, right? And it was a fascinating, like, you know, you get all sorts of appointments. Some appointments you go and you sit down and you play the game. Some appointments someone talks to you for a bit, then you sit down. Some appointments you don't play a game, but you watch a really lush presentation. You know, Resident Evil, Veronica, they had a really lush presentation, and then the director answered questions for 15 minutes. But this virtual appointment was a 90-minute PowerPoint. And just a very casual chat back and forth. And it was myself, someone from Games Radar, and the YouTuber, fighting game YouTuber, RPG YouTuber, Maximilian. And the three of us just spoke to these guys. But I was like fascinated because I asked them about competitive stuff. And they were like, yeah, you know, we're not really worrying about that. Like, we'll release the game and then people will decide if they think it's competitive or not, if it's competitively balanced, which I've never heard a fighting game producer say anything like that before in my life. And I don't know if this is because it's RGG doing it and they're approaching it more from that Yakuza angle.
Cinematic, yeah.
Because they are doing that cinematic story, which makes the Street Fighter, like, World Tour stuff look like child's play. But
Is
yeah.
that a proper, like adventure? Like,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like,
it's got 4 protagonists.
because I thought that's what Street Fighter was gonna have, like, but it felt a bit more like, I don't know how to describe
More
the
like
World
an online
Tour.
portal, wasn't it?
World
Yeah, it
Tour,
was like just
World
a-
Tour
yeah.
was a training ground to teach you how to play the game, really. Right.
Yeah,
Whereas this is more of a, like I said, they've got 4 different protagonists, so you're switching back and forth perspectives. And I like the idea, a bit like World Tour. But the problem with World Tour is you can't. Street Fighter characters are so iconic, you can't do too much to Chun-Li or whoever. But I like the idea that not all, but the old Virtua Fighter characters that are in this game are like legends. A lot of them haven't been seen for 5-10 years. A lot of them are in hiding, stuff like that. And so the way they're going to come into the story is probably going to be really exciting. So, yeah. But 20 years for VF5 today, which is a great fighting game, and obviously has only just recently had a re-release. So I recommend it to anyone who's interested. But it's a Virtua Fighter game, so you do basically need a PhD to play it. I think that's probably going to do it for this week, gents. I think we've taken enough of people's time. Obviously, if you want to hear a bit more from us, our patrons get the lock-in, which is our after-hours extra podcast where we just shoot the shit some more very, very casually. You can back us on Patreon. You can head to respec.net and hit the Patreon link at the top of the site, or you can go to patreon.com/respecnet, no dot in the Patreon URL. Or you can just read the site. Follow the site on Blue Sky, on X, on Facebook, whatever platform you use. That'll help you to get our stuff. Or join our Discord server. Stuff is all available in there. All those links are in the header of the site. Kirk, you got anything you want to plug?
Not really. Check out Fireside
Scout?
Chat Gaming. My what?
Scalp
Scalp.
for hair.
Fuck off,
Crimson.
mate. You can't fucking say, oh, look at the state of
I've
your
got
hairline.
there's more hair than on yours.
Mate, I could grow better hair than you if I wanted to.
Go on then.
I fucking will, mate.
Challenge.
Man's
Wow.
in denial. Oh shit, it's coming to blows next
Is it
time.
cheating if you go to Turkey though? Is you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I say it's good commitment if you did that.
I might just become a hat guy now.
Well, if you want to see more of Kirk's beautiful scalp, you can hit up Fireside
Fireside
Gaming for some great. They are good interviews. To be fair, mate, they're enjoyable. How it's not a promotional cycle for a specific game. I hope you get some Japanese devs at some point because that's I always
that'd
love
be
to see
nice.
that.
I do have an article coming out on Eurogamer this weekend, I think, as well. It's 1,300 words about ladders, if you're interested.
That sounds interesting,
Ladders?
but I can't condone reading Eurogamer, unfortunately.
Tom, you can't go ladders. You write about fucking plumbing issues and shit.
That's a different side business, isn't it? That's my newsletter, Low Poly Mess. There
Yes,
you go.
best
Go
time
and
to
subscribe to that.
I've been enjoying it.
It's good,
Yeah, it's
isn't it?
fun.
It's like the ravings of a madman.
Well, it is the ravings of a madman. It is. And on that note, thank you for joining me, guys, and thank you for listening, everyone. Say goodbye, Kirk.
Bye, Kirk.
Say goodbye, Tom.
So yeah.
And it's bye from me too. See you, everyone.